The tray in Elena Vane's hands trembled, the porcelain cups rattling like frantic heartbeats. She didn't look up, she couldn't. If she met the eyes of the man sitting at table 4, she was a dead woman. "You're shaking, Elena," a voice rasped. It was a cold, melodic sound, the kind of voice that ordered executions over espresso. Dominic Stane, the undisputed king of the city's underground, leaned back, his hand resting casually near the holster hidden by his bespoke silk blazer. Beside him sat a 7-year-old boy, Leo, with hair as dark as Dominic's and a smile that supposedly mirrored the man who ruled the docks with an iron fist. Elena forced a breath into her lungs, the scent of expensive cologne and ozone filling her senses. She reached into her apron pocket, her fingers brushing the crumbled laboratory report she'd intercepted from the mailroom an hour ago. It was a mistake, a fluke of fate that she'd seen it. But once seen, the truth burned like acid. "I'm just tired, Mr. Stane," she whispered, setting the coffee down. Dominic's eyes, sharp as razors, tracked the movement of her wrist. He didn't see a waitress, he saw a leak. He saw a tremor that shouldn't be there. "You've been with us for 5 years. You're family. And family doesn't lie to me." He reached out, grabbing her wrist. The grip wasn't violent, but it was absolute. Leo looked up from his coloring book, his innocent, wide eyes darting between the two of them. Elena felt the heat of the secret screaming in her throat. She knew the boy's blood. She knew the DNA markers listed on that paper. And she knew that the man Dominic called his greatest rival, the man he'd spent years trying to destroy, was the only person on Earth who could have fathered that child. If she spoke, a war would start that would burn the city to the ground. If she stayed silent, she was raising a lamb in a lion's den. "The boy," Elena choked out, her voice barely a thread. "Dominic, look at the boy's eyes. Really look at them." Dominic froze. The air in the private booth turned frigid. In that moment, the foundation of a criminal empire cracked. Hello to all our amazing viewers. We are so happy to have you here today for this gripping journey of secrets and shadows. Whether you're watching from the bustling streets of New York, the sunny coasts of Lagos, or the quiet corners of London, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're doing wonderful. We have a truly emotional story for you today, one that explores the lengths a person will go for the truth and the power of a mother's secret. Before we dive deeper into the chaos surrounding Elena and Dominic, please take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It helps our channel grow and ensures you never miss a single twist. Have you subscribed yet? Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. Dominic's grip tightened until Elena gasped. He leaned in, his face inches from hers, his voice a lethal whisper. "What are you saying, Elena? Choose your next words very carefully. They will be the last ones you ever speak if they're a lie." Elena felt a tear escape, tracing a hot path down her cheek. She pulled the crumpled paper from her pocket and smoothed it onto the table, covering Leo's drawing of a house and a sun. "His, not yours, Dominic," she breathed. "The test results. They came to the house by mistake. I saw the name of the clinic. I saw the donor match." Dominic's gaze dropped to the paper. He didn't move. He didn't blink. But Elena saw the color drain from his face, replaced by a terrifying, hollow gray. The man who feared nothing was looking at a piece of paper that proved his entire legacy was built on a lie. Leo reached out, his small hand touching Dominic's arm. "Daddy. Why is the lady crying?" The word daddy hit the room like a physical blow. Dominic didn't look at the boy. He stared at the name at the bottom of the paternity exclusion. Julian Thorne. His greatest enemy. The man who had supposedly killed Dominic's wife. The revelation didn't just break Dominic's heart, it shattered his reality. Was this a long con? Was the boy a Trojan horse planted in his home? Or was his late wife's betrayal deeper than he could have ever imagined? Elena stepped back, her heart racing so fast she felt dizzy. She had pulled the pin on a grenade, and now she was standing in the blast zone. "Get the car," Dominic said, his voice devoid of all emotion. It was the sound of a man who had died inside. "And Elena, you're coming with us. If this is a setup, I'll kill you myself. If it's true, God help the man who did this to me." How could a single piece of paper turn a protector into a predator? And what would happen to an innocent boy caught in the middle of a Mafia blood feud? The black armored SUV cut through the city, a phantom predator. Inside, the silence was thicker than the tinted glass that separated them from the world. Elena sat rigid in the back seat beside Leo, her eyes fixed on the back of Dominic Stane's head. Dominic wasn't just a powerful man. He was a monument built of grief and control. His empire was a fortress, not of greed, but of safety. 5 years ago, his wife, Sophia, had been murdered in a hit-and-run orchestrated by Julian Thorne's cartel. Dominic didn't just avenge her, he adopted her mission, to provide the next generation a life free from the violence he controlled. Leo, born a few weeks after Sophia's death, was the focal point of that mission. He had poured every ounce of his savage discipline into raising the boy as a prince, shielding him from the blood-soaked reality of the Stane name. Leo, oblivious, leaned against Elena. His small, warm hand settled on her arm. Elena, a former nurse whose debt led her to work Dominic's private estates, found herself pulled into this unique, dangerous family. She saw the father in Dominic, not the monster. A man who read Leo bedtime stories in a gentle baritone after spending the day crushing rivals. The man who had been a loyal friend to Sophia, offering her protection after her first marriage failed. But Elena carried her own shadow. Her deepest desire was redemption, to pay off the hospital bills of her estranged brother, Liam Vance, without sinking deeper into the Stane web. Her fear that her association with the Stanes would be Liam's final ruin. "Aunt Elena," Leo murmured, his voice sleepy. "Are we going to the park? You promised we'd feed the ducks." The casual lie, Aunt Elena, was a necessary part of the facade. Elena stroked his hair, the deep connection she felt for the boy tightening her chest. She had seen the raw, unedited footage of Sophia's car crash before it was wiped clean from the security archives. And she had seen the last will and testament, locked away, that named Julian Thorne as Leo's legal guardian should Dominic be killed. Sophia's secrets were buried deep, but they pulsed beneath the surface like seismic activity. Dominic turned slightly, catching Elena's reflection in the rearview mirror. His expression was a mask of granite. "We are going to a place where we discuss family matters, Leo. You stay quiet." The destination wasn't the docks or the mansion. It was a sterile, isolated medical facility owned by a doctor loyal only to Dominic, Dr. Rhys Shaw. Dr. Shaw was the third person in this volatile equation. A man of science shackled to the underworld, Rhys was Dominic's confidant, his analyst, and the keeper of his health records. Rhys knew Dominic's deepest vulnerability, his crippling, hidden fear of weakness. Dominic had always believed that true power was the ability to protect what was yours. Now, the fundamental thing he sought to protect, his son, was proven to be borrowed. They arrived at the clinic. The room was cold, lit by the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. Dominic didn't speak as Dr. Shaw, thin and nervous, collected samples from himself and Leo. The tension in the room was so thick it was suffocating. "I want the results in 90 minutes, Rhys," Dominic commanded, his voice low, vibrating with suppressed violence. "I want to know if this test Elena found is legitimate. And I want to know exactly what Sophia told you, if anything, before she died." Rhys adjusted his glasses, his hands visibly shaking. "Dominic, Sophia came to me, yes. But regarding general health. You know client-patient privilege. Privilege is a luxury you can't afford in my employ, doctor," Dominic cut in, stepping close. He wasn't shouting. The sheer weight of his presence was enough. "Start talking. Did she ever mention Julian Thorne?" Rhys swallowed hard, glancing at Elena, then at the innocent boy playing silently with a small toy soldier. She once mentioned that she regretted a secret. A mistake from before she met you. She was terrified of it being exposed." Elena watched Dominic's face crumple for a fleeting second, quickly replaced by pure, cold rage. The secret was confirmed, but the why remained a gaping wound. "And the father, Rhys?" Elena pressed, driven by her protective instinct toward Leo. "Did Sophia ever mention Julian Thorne?" Rhys hesitated, his eyes wide. She didn't need to. The blood work she had done showed a very specific, rare antigen marker. I ran the family history. Only one man in the tri-state area had that marker besides Leo. Julian Thorne. Dominic took a step back, the air knocked out of him. The DNA secret wasn't just a betrayal, it was a ticking time bomb. It wasn't just about his son. It was about the man he had hated and hunted for half a decade. Julian Thorne was still out there, running his own international cartel, believing Dominic had nothing on him. Now, Dominic realized his enemy didn't just walk free, he had a direct line to Dominic's own heart. Dominic looked at Leo, then at Elena, the source of this devastating truth. His lips curled into a snarl that wasn't for his enemy, but for himself. He had been a fool. "Elena," he said, his voice laced with venom. "You knew this before today. Why didn't you tell me? Why wait until now?" Elena knew she had to answer with absolute honesty to survive. "I didn't know it was Thorne until I saw the test result this morning. But I knew Leo wasn't yours, Dominic. Because I was the nurse who attended to Sophia's delivery. And the day she gave birth, she told me the boy's father died in a plane crash a year ago. She lied. Dominic. She told me she was protecting Leo from a dangerous world. But she never mentioned who she was protecting him from." The air crackled with the revelation that Sophia had built a wall of lies to protect Leo, a wall that was now crumbling around them. Dominic was left with the devastating choice: protect the lie or expose the truth and unleash hell. If you're finding this story as gripping as we are, please hit the like button and leave a comment telling us what you think Dominic should do next. Is the boy worth starting a war for? Dominic glared at the boy, who was now quietly coloring a picture of a rocket ship. The boy had Julian Thorne's blood, but he was Dominic's son in every way that mattered. His mannerisms, his love for books, the small, specific scar over his left eyebrow from a fall Dominic had patched up himself. This was not a weapon. This was his heart. "The test results will confirm the truth in 1 hour, Dominic said, turning his back on Rhys. He looked at Elena, his eyes cold and dangerous. "Until then, you are under my protection, or my lock and key. You know too much, and now you have the choice. Help me understand the depth of Sophia's deception, or be collateral damage when I decide what to do with the man who planted his seed in my home." He was trapped. If he told Julian Thorne, the enemy would use the boy as leverage. If he didn't, he lived a lie. The only person who held the full truth, Sophia, was dead. But Elena, the unexpected witness, was alive. Did Sophia plan this? Dominic wondered, the thought a burning coal in his mind. Did she want Julian to have the boy if I died? The clock on the wall ticked loudly, measuring the seconds until Dominic's world imploded. The lab timer on the wall of Dr. Shaw's sterile room blinked down to 0. The 90 minutes had passed in a silent, agonizing blur of dread. Leo, exhausted by the tension he couldn't name, had finally fallen asleep in the corner, his head nestled on Elena's lap. Dominic stood over the lab bench as Rhys carefully pulled the printout from the analyzer. The air was charged, not with electricity, but with fate. Rhys cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses, his hands still unsteady. "Dominic, the test is conclusive," Rhys confirmed, his voice barely audible. "The first test Elena found was accurate. You are excluded. Leo is not biologically your son." The word struck Dominic, but the impact was different this time. The shock was replaced by a cold, searing purpose. He had prepared for this result. It merely validated his immediate, violent course of action. The father's name, Rhys. Confirm it, word for word, from the genetic markers. Rhys looked up, fear flickering in his eyes. The markers match. They are a complete match to Julian Thorne. It's an identical profile. The man you have been hunting for years is the biological father of the boy you are raising. Dominic nodded once, a grim, silent acknowledgement of the betrayal that had defined his last 5 years. He reached out and snatched the report, folding it precisely. Suddenly, a hidden phone in Dominic's breast pocket vibrated, a dedicated, encrypted line known only to him and his most trusted lieutenants. Dominic glanced at the ID. It was Marco Cruz, his head of security. Dominic answered, stepping away. His voice was dangerously calm. "Report." Marco's voice was frantic, crackling through the line. "Boss, We have a situation. Julian Thorne's people, they hit the safe house where we keep Sophia's personal effects. They knew exactly what they were looking for. The only thing missing is the lockbox containing her original will and the hard drive of her old computer. The air in the room exploded. Dominic slammed his fist onto the stainless steel counter, making the glassware jump. They knew I was closing in, Dominic snarled, his eyes dark with the realization that the enemy wasn't reacting to him, they were anticipating him. Julian is moving. He knows I have the boy, or he knows he has to secure Sophia's secrets before I do. Elena shot up, startling Leo awake. The truth of the will, naming Thorne as guardian, was now a critical factor. Julian Thorne wasn't just after secrets, he was after Leo. Dominic, wait. Elena cried out, ignoring the furious look he gave her. Sophia's will. It names Julian as Leo's legal guardian if anything happens to you. If he gets that original document, he can use the court system to take the boy. This isn't just about blood. This is about legal leverage. Dominic stared at her, the severity of the threat sinking in. He had planned to keep this secret, use the boy as bait, and destroy Thorne from the inside. Now, Julian was making the first move. The game had changed from a blood feud into a battle for legal custody of an asset worth more than any territory, his enemy's son. You, Elena, Dominic commanded, pointing at her with devastating certainty. You knew Sophia personally. You were a nurse. What was on that hard drive? What else did she hide? Elena felt the crushing weight of her own secret. She knew exactly what was on the hard drive. Sophia hadn't just kept a will, she had kept detailed logs of Thorne's most lucrative illegal activities, a safety deposit box of information meant to keep both Dominic and Julian at bay. Sophia gave me a code, Dominic, Elena admitted, her heart hammering against her ribs. She told me, if I don't survive, give this to the person who will protect Leo, no matter the name on the birth certificate. It unlocks an encrypted file on her computer. I didn't know what was inside. The revelation was the unexpected twist they needed. Elena wasn't just a witness, she was the key. Dominic's intense gaze locked onto Elena. The desperation in her eyes was genuine, the fear palpable, but her courage in speaking up, in the face of his wrath, was undeniable. For the first time, he saw her not as a servant or a leak, but as a terrified, fiercely protective ally. The enemy of his enemy. Marco, trace the location of Julian Thorne's primary residence, Dominic ordered into the phone. We are going in. And Reese, you secure this building. If anyone asks, we were never here. If anyone comes looking for Elena, you tell them she quit and left the city. He hung up and gripped Elena's arm, pulling her toward the door. You are the only person who knows what Sophia truly wanted. You're coming with me. If Julian gets that will, we lose Leo. We are going to his territory, and you are going to give me everything you know. Please leave a comment right now. If you were Elena, would you trust Dominic, the man who might be Leo's protector or his captor? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to follow this deadly journey. As the SUV sped toward the hostile territory, Dominic's internal conflict raged. He couldn't deny the fierce attraction that flared every time Elena stood up to him. She was the only person in his life who saw him as something other than a warlord. She saw the father he desperately wanted to be. He looked back at Elena, who was holding Leo tightly, rocking him gently. The code, Elena. Give it to me now. I can't, she whispered, not looking up. It's mental, Dominic. A riddle Sophia gave me. It relates to the day Leo was born, something only she and I know. A riddle. Dominic scoffed, fury mixing with grudging respect. You're telling me the key to my enemy's downfall is a lullaby? No, Elena insisted, meeting his eyes. It's the truth that Sophia couldn't tell you. Julian Thorne didn't kill her, Dominic. She told me she was planning to tell you everything that night. But someone else got to her first. And that information is on the hard drive. Dominic froze. Julian Thorne wasn't the murderer. The entire foundation of his life, his hatred, his vengeance, was based on a lie. The only way to find the truth was to risk everything and break into the vault of his greatest enemy, with the one woman who held the code in her memory. The stakes had just become insurmountably high. Dominic was hunting a killer, not just an enemy, and that killer was likely still operating in the shadows, ready to reclaim his son. The armored SUV slowed to a halt several blocks from Julian Thorne's compound, a heavily fortified coastal mansion known as the Keep. Dominic ordered the driver to cut the engine, the sudden silence inside the vehicle pressing down on them. Leo was still asleep, a fragile island of innocence in the surrounding storm. Dominic turned to Elena, his face grim in the faint glow of the city lights filtering through the window. "We are going in silent. I need the code, Elena." The exact phrase. "If we step inside and he has that will, we have minutes before he mobilizes his legal team. And once the lawyers are involved, the boy is gone." Elena clutched Leo tighter, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She looked at Dominic, not as the ruthless boss, but as a desperate father about to risk everything. She saw the vulnerability that his iron will usually suppressed. "It's not just a phrase, Dominic. It's an instruction. Sophia said it was the one thing she regretted hiding from you. She told me the day Leo was born, when she thought she was dying from complications." Elena swallowed, recalling the whispered words in the Stark hospital room. She said, "Tell Dominic that the lullaby is backwards, and the sun always rises in the west." Dominic stared, his brow furrowed in concentration. The riddle was cryptic, clearly intended for a specific context. "The lullaby, the one I sing to him? Starlight, soft light, where the good dreams sleep." "No." Elena shook her head. "Sophia sang a different one when he was a newborn. She stopped when she moved in with you. I only heard it once. It was about 2 houses and the river." Dominic tensed. That lullaby was a secret between him and Sophia, a story about a hidden, shared property they had bought years ago, a quiet, secret escape. 2 houses and the river, Dominic repeated, his voice hushed. "It's the location of the old hunting cabin. She must have hidden the computer there. But what does the sun always rises in the west mean?" "It means the file isn't named Sophia or Leo," Elena explained, a chilling clarity entering her voice. "It means the file is named after something that is fundamentally wrong. Something that reverses the truth." "A reversal," Dominic murmured, his mind racing through the logic of betrayal. He looked at Elena, a flicker of appreciation in his dangerous eyes. Her quick mind and quiet observation were invaluable. "You're good at this, Elena. Too good for a simple nurse." "I'm good at seeing the things people try to hide," she replied, the intensity in her gaze matching his. Sophia was desperate. She didn't know who to trust. She trusted you to protect Leo, but she needed insurance against Julian. And maybe, insurance against you. The accusation hung heavy between them. Meanwhile, inside the Keep, Julian Thorne, lean, elegantly cruel, and radiating the coiled danger of a predator, was briefing his men. "They took the lockbox," Julian sneered, tapping his fingers on the marble countertop. "But the will is just a formality. The real leverage is the boy. I want Leo Thorne back. That animal Stane has been parading my son around as his own for 5 years. His damaged goods, but he's still my blood." Julian's right-hand man, Hector Salazar, stepped forward. "Stane is moving, boss. His security detail is scattered. He's coming here." "He is," Julian confirmed, a predatory smile spreading across his face. "He thinks I have the will. Let him think that. The real document is with my attorney, secured. But the hard drive, that's what truly matters." Sophia was clever. She hid evidence of the shipment route I set up with the Colombian cartels. If Stane gets that, the US market is crippled. Julian was hunting 2 birds, his son, and the evidence that could destroy his business. He ordered his snipers to set up around the perimeter, anticipating Dominic's reckless attack. "Let him walk into the trap," Julian instructed. "If he's here, he's desperate. And a desperate man makes mistakes." Dominic, recognizing the high-level security around the Keep, decided to pivot. He couldn't risk a frontal assault for a hard drive that wasn't even there. "We go for the cabin first," Dominic decided, sliding into the driver's seat. "If the will and the hard drive are there, we get them, and then we disappear." Julian can have his empty fortress. Elena, sitting beside him now, felt the raw energy and control emanating from him. And Leo? He can't stay here. He stays with us, Dominic said simply, glancing at the sleeping boy in the back. Until I know which side Julian is on, the father or the killer. You, Elena, you're my eyes and ears. I need you to focus on that riddle. The lullaby backwards. The sun in the west. Elena looked down at Leo's peaceful face. The boy's eyes were the same deep, startling green as Julian Thorne's. But his small, determined jaw was pure Dominic. The complexity of the lie was crushing. As they drove, the tension between Dominic and Elena began to shift. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was shared purpose, a high-stakes partnership. Why didn't you leave? Dominic asked abruptly, his eyes on the winding road. When you realized he wasn't my son, why didn't you run and sell the story? You could have bought your brother out of debt 10 times over. Elena paused, the question hitting her deep. Because I saw the way you look at him, Dominic. And I knew that if that secret came out in the wrong way, you'd become the monster everyone says you are. Leo needs you, regardless of blood. And I knew Sophia wouldn't forgive me if I sacrificed him for my own gain. The simple, honest answer silenced Dominic. He looked at her quickly, his eyes softening just for a second. He had only ever trusted loyalty born of fear or debt. Elena's loyalty was born of empathy. It was terrifyingly attractive. If you're feeling the impossible connection growing between Dominic and Elena, make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment below. What do you think is the biggest secret Sophia was hiding? They arrived at the secluded cabin, a rustic, wooden stone building overlooking a dark, rushing river. It was silent, protected by a thick canopy of trees. Dominic moved with practiced ease, checking the perimeter for traps. He kicked open the heavy front door, weapon drawn, Elena close behind him. The cabin was exactly as Dominic remembered. Dusty, masculine, a hideout untouched for years. He went straight to the old stone hearth, where he and Sophia had etched their initials years ago. Elena looked around, trying to channel Sophia's paranoid ingenuity. Where would she hide a hard drive? Sophia didn't hide things. She disguised them, Dominic muttered, checking behind loose floorboards. Elena remembered the lullaby's first line, 2 houses stand, where the water flows slow. Her eyes landed on an antique cuckoo clock on the mantelpiece, its face permanently set to 12 o'clock. The clock. It's always midnight. But the sun always rises in the west. Reverse it. Dominic stared at the clock, then pulled it off the wall. He saw nothing. Midnight is 12 o'clock, Elena insisted. The reversal of the day. The opposite of true north, or the west. What if the time is the code? Dominic's face clicked with understanding. He pulled a small, hidden magnet from the clock's base, revealing a tiny, digital keypad underneath. The code isn't a word. It's the time of Leo's birth. He typed in the time of birth only he and Sophia knew, 3:45 a.m. The wall above the hearth slid back, revealing a small, temperature-controlled vault. Inside sat 2 items, a battered black hard drive and a sealed envelope marked, to Dominic. Read this when you know the truth. Dominic reached for the hard drive, but before his fingers could touch the cold metal, the sound of a roaring engine echoed outside, followed by the heavy thud of armed men dropping from vehicles. Julian Thorne hadn't just anticipated them. He had laid a precise trap. A voice boomed from outside, metallic and cold. Stane. I have the will. You have the secret. Give me my son, or you die right here, with the woman who betrayed you both. Dominic shoved the hard drive and the letter into Elena's hands. Run. Through the back window. I'll hold them off. Don't look back. Elena looked at the vault, the hard drive, and the letter, the secrets of 2 empires resting in her hands, and then at Dominic, who was now preparing to face a small army alone. She had the key to everything. But could she leave the only man who still believed in her to face death alone? Dominic spun, firing 2 precise shots that shattered the light outside, plunging the entrance into darkness. The sound of Julian's men scrambling for cover was the only music in the small cabin. Go, Elena, now. Dominic roared, kicking over the antique dining table for cover. Elena, clutching the hard drive and the sealed envelope, hesitated for only a second. She looked at the sleeping Leo, bundled near the back window, and the man who was now facing death to protect the boy. She couldn't leave them. She had the key, and the key was useless if the lock died. She dove behind the stone hearth, ripping open the envelope marked to Dominic. "Read this when you know the truth." It wasn't a long letter. It was Sophia's final confession. Elena's eyes scanned the cramped, frantic handwriting. "Dominic, my love, my protector. Leo is not your blood, but he is your son. I lied about Julian killing his father, because Julian is his father. But he is a monster. I never told you because I was afraid you'd stop loving Leo. And I was afraid Julian would use the truth to destroy you." Elena's hands trembled violently, but she kept reading, the sound of gunfire making the text jump. "The lie I kept isn't about Leo. It's about the killer. Julian did not run me off the road. I knew who did it. I kept the evidence on the hard drive, encrypted under the name West Sun. It wasn't Julian. It was the man he trusted most, the one who handled all his assets and the man who knew I was leaving him that night. The one who works close to you now. It was Hector Salazar. He wanted to take over Julian's empire and frame you both. He thought he got the hard drive, but I switched them. He's working with someone inside your organization. Dominic. Trust no one." Elena's gasp was swallowed by the sudden silence outside. The ambush had halted. Dominic was reloading, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his brow. "Elena, what is it?" Dominic hissed, eyes scanning the dark woods. She crawled to him, the crumpled letter in her hand. "It's a complete reversal, Dominic. We've been hunting the wrong ghosts." She laid the key pieces of information out, the letter and the hard drive labeled West Sun. Julian Thorne didn't kill Sophia. It was his right-hand man, Hector Salazar. And Sophia suspected there's a mole in your organization helping him. Dominic stared at the letter, then at the hard drive, then at Elena. The shock was physical. The last 5 years of his life, the rage, the solitary pursuit of vengeance, the careful reconstruction of his life around this beautiful, devastating lie, it all evaporated. He had dedicated his existence to destroying Julian Thorne, and Julian was merely a heartbroken, dangerous father who was being framed. "Hector Salazar," Dominic whispered, the name tasting like ash. "His running Thorne's entire operation. If he killed Sophia, he's framing Julian, and he's been orchestrating everything, including the attack on the safe house tonight." The true threat was now clear. Hector Salazar was the mastermind, playing both crime lords against each other, all to gain control of Leo, the key to Julian's fortune, and destroy Dominic's empire. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air, but it wasn't Julian's. It was Marco Cruz, Dominic's head of security, speaking on an unencrypted channel outside. "Boss, the perimeter is clear. Julian's men retreated. We tracked them. They were only a distraction." Dominic's blood ran cold. "Marco, what are you doing here? I told you to stay put." "We found a tracking chip on the boy's teddy bear, boss," Marco replied, his voice flat. "It led us straight to the cabin. We cleared the area. Julian Thorne is not here. But Salazar's team is heading to your private jet hangar. They're taking the Falcon. They're not going for the hard drive, they're going for the mole, whoever is currently trying to leave the country." The ultimate twist. The mole wasn't leaving. Salazar was setting up an escape route for the evidence, or perhaps the person who knew the truth. And Marco, who knew the location of the secret cabin, was suddenly too close, too helpful. Elena looked up at Dominic, her heart sinking. The mole, the one Sophia wrote about. It's not just Salazar's men who knew about this location. Marco knew. He's the only one who could have tracked the chip. Dominic felt a sickening lurch in his stomach. Marco, his loyal, lifelong friend, the man who handled his defenses, was the Judas. "Marco," Dominic said slowly into the radio, his voice laced with venom. "You just confirmed that Salazar knew about the chip. Only 2 people knew about that chip besides me. Sophia, and you." Marco's line went dead. The silence that followed was terrifying. They're not going to the hangar for a mole, Elena, Dominic realized, his eyes burning with devastating understanding. They're going for the will. Julian must have entrusted the original will to someone loyal, someone outside his immediate circle. And Salazar is intercepting it now to destroy it and secure Leo's future guardianship for himself. Dominic grabbed Elena's shoulders, his touch desperate. The fight isn't here. It's at the airport. You have the code, Elena. You have the only proof that Julian Thorne is innocent and that my friend is a traitor. I have to trust you with my life, and Leo's. We go now. Do you feel the gut-wrenching betrayal? If you want to see Dominic confront his treacherous second-in-command, type next and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see if they make it out alive. The intensity of the moment, the shared knowledge of betrayal, the common goal of protecting Leo, erased the distance between them. Elena didn't see a Mafia boss anymore. She saw a man who had lost his wife, his purpose, and now his best friend, all in the span of an hour. Dominic, wait, Elena whispered, reaching up and touching the side of his face. His skin was cold with shock. It was a moment of profound, shared vulnerability. You don't have to do this alone. I'm with you. We save the boy, and we clear Sophia's name. Dominic nodded, his eyes locked onto hers. The fierce determination in her gaze, the pure, unselfish loyalty she showed to a man who wasn't even her own brother, ignited a spark of profound respect and a terrifying, undeniable heat. He felt a connection he hadn't experienced since Sophia's death, raw, necessary, and born of survival. He pressed the hard drive firmly into her hand. Hold on to this. It's the only way to expose them both. The moment we get to the airport, your only priority is the boy. The path to justice wasn't through Julian Thorne, but through the man Dominic had trusted with his life. And the only person he could trust now was the waitress who had held his son every night for 5 years. The 15-minute drive from the secluded cabin to Dominic's private jet hangar was a descent into silence and dread. Leo, thankfully, remained asleep in the back, shielded from the chaos by exhaustion and the desperate speed of the SUV. Dominic drove with a reckless intensity, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The betrayal of Marco, the man who was like a brother, cut deeper than any bullet. He felt a profound sense of isolation. He planned this from the moment Sophia died, Dominic said, his voice flat with disbelief. He must have seen the real killer that night. He must have known Julian was being framed. And he let me spend 5 years hunting the wrong man. Elena, sitting next to him, gently clutched the West Sun hard drive. She was the only thing holding him together now, the only source of truth in his crumbling world. Marco wasn't just protecting Salazar, Elena observed, her eyes scanning the dark road ahead. He was protecting himself. Sophia wrote that the killer was working with someone close to you. Marco didn't just handle security, he handled the finances. He knew everything. If Marco is involved, then every door, every exit, every contingency plan I put in place is now compromised, Dominic muttered, the gravity of the situation settling like a stone in his gut. He'll be expecting me. The hangar will be a kill zone. Elena looked back at Leo, then at Dominic. The only way to survive was to separate, but the thought of letting Dominic walk into that alone was unbearable. We can't go in together. If they see me, they'll know you found the letter. They'll go straight for Leo. Dominic looked at her, his eyes blazing with a mixture of fear for his son and respect for her tactical insight. What are you suggesting? You created this fortress, Dominic. I know the blueprints. There's a maintenance tunnel under the main hangar, leading to the auxiliary refueling station. You create a distraction from the front. Show them you're focused on Marco. I'll take Leo and enter through the tunnel. If I can get to the flight control tower, I can access the surveillance feed. Sophia said the evidence on the hard drive wasn't just files, it was a time-stamped video log from Julian's compound. Dominic stared at her, assessing the risk. Sending her into a closed-off, unknown space with his son was the most dangerous thing he could do. But keeping her next to him was a guaranteed death sentence for all 3 of them. If you get caught, Elena. I won't get caught, she cut in, her voice resolute. My brother is waiting for me to come home. I won't let him down. But you have to promise me, Dominic, if you find Marco, you bring him back alive. We need him to confess, or the truth in that hard drive is just a waitress's story against a crime lord's alibi. The separation was painful, a visceral tear. It felt like the end, the moment the fragile hope they had built together might shatter. They arrived at the edge of the airfield. The private hangar, capable of housing Dominic's Falcon jet, glowed eerily under the floodlights. 2 armed vehicles were parked near the entrance, and the shadows were thick with motion. Dominic cut the engine, kissing Leo gently on the forehead. Be brave, my lion. Aunt Elena will take care of you. He turned to Elena, his eyes heavy with unspoken things. If I don't make it back, the emergency satellite phone in my pocket has Julian Thorne's encrypted number. You tell him everything. Tell him I died proving his innocence. Tell him to protect Leo. He pressed the letter into her hand, kissed her hard, quickly, a desperate, raw acknowledgement of the connection forged in fire, and shoved her toward the back door. Go! Elena scrambled out, clutching the hard drive, her heart a cold, heavy weight. She slipped into the maintenance tunnel entrance, the air immediately smelling of oil and dust. The sound of Dominic's tires squealing as he sped toward the main hangar was the last thing she heard before the access hatch clanged shut. Inside the tunnel, everything was pitch black. She used the flashlight app on her phone, one arm wrapped tightly around the sleepy, confused Leo. Where are we, Elena? Leo mumbled, his small body heavy against hers. It's a secret adventure, sweetie, she whispered, trying to sound calm as she navigated the cramped, spiderweb-filled space. We're finding a treasure for your dad. But the darkness mirrored her internal despair. She was deep in Dominic's infrastructure, a labyrinth designed to keep people out. What if the exit was locked? What if the tunnel was sealed? Suddenly, a loud click echoed from ahead. Elena froze, dropping into a crouch. The air vibrated with the sound of heavy, measured footsteps coming down the tunnel toward them. They weren't Salazar's men. They moved with precision, wearing the familiar, distinct boots of Dominic's personal security detail. It's Marco, Elena realized, her blood turning to ice. Marco had anticipated the tunnel. He had sealed her off. She backed up against the wall, pulling Leo behind a stack of rusted oil drums. The single beam of light from her phone created a blinding target. Elena Vane. Marco's voice boomed down the narrow tunnel, echoing menacingly. I know you have the hard drive, and I know you read the letter. You have 2 minutes to hand over the boy and the evidence, or I will kill you both right where you stand. Don't make me do this, Elena. You know I love this boy too. The desperation in Marco's voice was the confirmation of his monstrous betrayal. He was threatening to kill the child he claimed to love. Outside, a barrage of gunfire erupted as Dominic crashed the SUV into the main hangar doors, creating the diversion. He was fighting, but Marco was here, in the dark, with them. Elena's hope crumbled. They were separated, exposed, and trapped by a traitor who knew their every move. We're at the point of no return. Do you think Elena can use the hard drive to expose Marco before he reaches them? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to help Elena survive this terrifying moment. Marco's footsteps grew louder, closer. Elena knew she couldn't run, and she couldn't fight. Her eyes darted around the confined space, searching for an impossible escape. Marco's heavy breathing was now audible, just around the bend of the tunnel. His flashlight beam swept the oil-slicked walls, a relentless, terrifying eye. Elena knew she couldn't outrun him, not while carrying the heavy, sleeping weight of Leo. She pressed the boy's head gently against her chest, her own heart hammering against his cheek. She looked down at the hard drive in her left hand. It held the truth, but how could she deploy it? You're out of time, Elena. Marco called out, his voice now closer than she anticipated, thick with desperation. Don't sacrifice the boy for a dead woman's secrets. Give me the drive, and I'll tell Dominic you escaped. He's lying, Elena thought, the certainty chilling. He's lying because he knows this drive contains his execution order. Suddenly, Leo shifted. His small fingers, still clutching the toy soldier, knocked against the hard drive in Elena's grip. The small plastic soldier, a gift from Dominic, sparked an idea. The hard drive isn't the weapon, Leo is, she whispered to herself. She remembered the floor plan of the hangar, drilled into her memory from her years on the estate. The maintenance tunnel led directly beneath the auxiliary refueling pump, a large, red button protected by a thin wire mesh on the wall beside the exit door. If she could reach that wire mesh. Marco rounded the bend, his face a terrifying mix of grief and fury in the flashlight's beam. His gun was up, aimed directly at Elena. Elena! Stop! I don't want to hurt you. You already did, Marco. Elena cried out, her voice echoing down the tunnel. When you stood by and let Dominic hunt an innocent man for 5 years. You killed Sophia to take Julian's place. The accusation hit Marco like a physical blow, halting his advance for a crucial second. That's a lie. Sophia was a loose end. Now you will be, too. In that fraction of a moment, Elena acted. She tossed the hard drive high and hard, not at Marco, but directly at the thin wire mesh protecting the refueling pump's main power switch, 15 feet behind him. The hard drive struck the wire mesh with a metallic clang. It didn't break the mesh, but the impact, combined with the electrical charge from the tunnel's ancient wiring, caused a massive surge. The lights in the tunnel died instantly. The entire auxiliary refueling station plunged into darkness, followed by a sudden, ear-splitting explosion of sound. The emergency alarm of the main hangar, triggered by the power loss. Dominic had his distraction, but Elena had created the ultimate diversion. In the ensuing chaos and darkness, Marco shouted in surprise. Elena dropped Leo, covering him instantly with her body, and then scrambled forward, grabbing a heavy, rusted pipe lying discarded on the floor. As Marco recovered, his flashlight beam sweeping frantically, Elena moved. She swung the heavy pipe, aiming for the gun hand. The pipe struck Marco's arm with a dull, sickening thud. Marco roared in pain, dropping the weapon. Elena scrambled to retrieve the hard drive and the gun, but Marco, fueled by adrenaline, tackled her. They hit the greasy floor in a desperate struggle. You stubborn fool. Marco gasped, his hands wrapping around Elena's throat. You signed your death warrant. Elena fought back, but he was stronger, heavier. Her vision began to tunnel. She couldn't breathe. Not here. Not now. Suddenly, a voice sliced through the darkness, cold and lethal. Let her go, Marco. It was Dominic. He stood silhouetted against the faint moonlight filtering from the tunnel entrance, his massive frame radiating deadly intensity. He had disengaged from the front line, using the alarm and the resulting power failure as cover to race back to the tunnel entrance. Marco, still pinned to Elena, twisted his head, his eyes widening in panic. Dominic. It's her. She tried to kill me. She's working with Julian. She has the hard drive. Dominic didn't move. He looked down at the scene, Elena pinned beneath his supposed friend, Marco's face contorted in a desperate lie, and the small, crying form of Leo nearby. You're a terrible liar, Marco. Dominic's voice was a low growl of pure betrayal. I just took 2 of Salazar's men alive. They confessed that Salazar was moving on the will because you told him the hard drive was missing. You knew exactly where we were going. You tracked us with the chip you installed in the boy's toy. Dominic took a slow, agonizing step forward, his weapon raised, not aimed, but lowered in sorrow. You broke my heart, Marco. You murdered Sophia. You tried to frame the wrong man. And now you're trying to strangle the only person who had the courage to tell me the truth. Marco saw the total loss of control in Dominic's eyes, the quiet, dangerous breakdown of a man who had lost everything twice. He released Elena, scrambling back, reaching for a knife sheath hidden in his boot. Elena coughed, pulling herself free and crawling toward Leo. I did it for the family, Dominic. Marco screamed, tears mixing with the grime on his face. You were blind. Sophia was going to ruin us all with her secrets. Julian was weak. I was taking over for you. Before Marco could launch his attack, Dominic fired. Not to kill, but to incapacitate. The shot hit Marco's shoulder, dropping him instantly with a scream of pain. The dark tunnel was filled with the smell of gunpowder and the sound of silence. Elena rushed to Dominic, not to check on him, but to steady him. He was trembling, the weight of the betrayal finally crushing him. "I found the evidence, Dominic," Elena whispered, holding up the hard drive. "The video log. It's all here. But we have to get out now. Salazar's main forces are converging on the main hangar." Dominic nodded, his eyes fixed on the man who had been his brother. The turning point was complete. The true enemy was subdued, the mole exposed, and the path to justice was clear. He had found his courage not in vengeance, but in trusting Elena's truth. If you're ready for the final, adrenaline-fueled confrontation with the true mastermind, hit that like button and make sure you've subscribed. What do you think is on that video log? Dominic, leaning heavily on Elena for a moment, regained his composure. He picked up Leo, holding his son tight. "We're not running now, Elena. We have the proof. We expose Salazar, and we end this. But we need to use this footage to draw him out and make him confess, on camera." They had to get to the flight control tower. The highest point, the central hub of surveillance and communication. The plane, Elena realized, looking toward the distant hangar. "Salazar knows you'll be coming after him. He'll be on the Falcon, waiting for takeoff, ready to use the will to claim Leo from another country." Dominic's expression was grim. "Then we are going to ground that jet and use his final escape route as our stage for justice." The emergency alarms were still wailing, a desperate, high-pitched scream cutting through the night. The power failure had plunged the main hangar into a dangerous, chaotic darkness, illuminated only by the runway lights and the flashlights of panicked security teams loyal to Dominic. Dominic, holding the sleeping Leo in one arm and his weapon in the other, moved with grim focus toward the central flight control tower. Elena ran beside him, the hard drive tucked securely into her waistband. She kept her eyes on the shadows, expecting Salazar's men to emerge from every corner. "We need the main system feed," Dominic muttered, pulling Elena behind a cargo container. "The video log is the only thing that will make Julian trust us, and the only thing that will hold up in court. If Salazar destroys that Falcon, he destroys the last copy of the will." As they approached the tower's base, they heard the sharp, rhythmic thump-thump-thump of the Falcon's jet engines powering up. Salazar was trying to make an immediate, unauthorized escape. "He's lifting off." Elena gasped. "We'll never make it to the top." Dominic didn't hesitate. He looked up at the glass control cabin, 5 stories high. The observation deck. "There's a winch lift on the exterior. It's manual, but it's faster than the stairs." They scrambled onto the exterior platform. Dominic clipped Elena's belt securely to the safety line, then strapped Leo onto his back using a spare strap from a cargo harness. "You run the winch, Elena," Dominic commanded, his voice tight. "Don't stop until we hit the top. If I fall, you protect the boy. If they see us, you grab the hard drive and toss it into the jet wash, destroy the evidence so they can't frame us." Elena nodded, her hands already gripping the cold, rough iron of the winch mechanism. The sheer adrenaline was masking the fear. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit control cabin, Hector Salazar, impeccably dressed and radiating cold confidence, was shouting into the headset. "Tower, this is Stane's Falcon. Give me clearance. Emergency medical flight." Salazar, the true mastermind, was flanked by 2 nervous pilots. He held a thick, stamped envelope, Julian Thorne's original will, that Marco had secured just before his betrayal was exposed. A pilot's voice crackled. "Negative, Falcon. You are in a hard power down. No clearance. Return to hangar." Salazar sneered, slamming the desk. "They're stalling. They know. Get us airborne. We're taking off on manual override." He looked down at the platform 5 stories below and spotted the winch starting to move. He saw the faint outline of Dominic, carrying the boy, and the woman beside him cranking the lift. Salazar smiled, a terrible, chilling sight. "They're coming for a confrontation. How dramatic. Light them up." A brutal searchlight snapped on, blinding Elena. Dominic shielded Leo with his body, the light making them an impossible target. Shots rang out from the tower roof. Elena gripped the winch handle, pushing every ounce of strength into the crank. "My brother. Leo. Justice." Those words were the only things keeping her moving. Her knuckles scraped raw against the metal, but she kept cranking. The ascent was excruciatingly slow, a climb under fire. Dominic reached out, his hand finding Elena's, grounding her. The raw attraction that had been simmering was now a desperate, focused lifeline. They were fighting as one, their breathing synchronized, their hearts beating the same frantic rhythm of survival. Finally, they reached the observation deck. Dominic kicked open the door, rolling onto the floor, gun raised. Salazar was waiting. He had abandoned the pilots and stood at the center of the control cabin, silhouetted against the bright instrument panels. Dominic. How touching. Salazar's voice dripped with full sincerity. You brought the bloodline and the key to my future. And you brought the traitorous whore who slept with Julian Thorne. Dominic placed Leo gently behind a reinforced console. Elena is the key to your future, Salazar. She knows the truth. The truth is irrelevant, Salazar countered, holding up the sealed envelope. I have Julian Thorne's original will. Once the Falcon is airborne, I file this in a non-extradition zone. I become Leo's legal guardian and the inheritor of his father's immense fortune. And with Marco gone, I take your territory. Checkmate. You killed Sophia for this, Elena cut in, stepping forward. She pulled the hard drive from her waistband. You killed her because she knew you were double-crossing Julian, not Dominic. She recorded your confession. Salazar paled slightly. Lies. That drive is empty, Stane. I know what Sophia's backup protocol was. It's not a backup, Elena said, her voice clear and strong. She spun around and plugged the hard drive into the tower's main security terminal. It's the original video log, hidden under the West Sun protocol. I know the code. I know the name of the file. She typed quickly, her fingers flying across the cold keyboard, fueled by righteous anger. The massive main screen above the console, the primary airport surveillance feed, flickered. The chaotic view of the airfield was replaced by a grainy, familiar image. Julian Thorne's office, 5 years ago. Then, the audio began to play. She's threatening to tell Dominic that I was redirecting your shipping lines. Salazar's voice, younger and colder, filled the cabin. She's going to expose us both, Julian. She has to be silenced. I'll make it look like an accident. Frame Dominic, clean up the loose end, and then we take over his empire. The screen showed Salazar pacing, then a horrifying cut. Salazar in a black van, deliberately ramming Sophia's car off the road. The video ended with the sound of crushing metal and a chilling, final laugh from Salazar. The truth, raw and indisputable, flooded the control cabin. Salazar lunged, desperation turning to pure savagery, aiming for the hard drive. But Dominic was faster. He stepped in front of Elena, shielding her with his body, and delivered a brutal, precise blow to Salazar's jaw. Salazar staggered back, his composure finally shattered. He recovered quickly, pulling a stiletto from his sleeve. The fight was a desperate, brutal dance between two heavyweights, fueled by vengeance and the need for survival. As they fought, Elena saw the moment the truth finally hit Salazar. His eyes darted to the screen, where his own confession played silently on a loop. His entire plan, 5 years in the making, had just been destroyed by a single, brave waitress. In one final, desperate move, Salazar lunged at Dominic, intending to use the stiletto. But Dominic, anticipating the move, sidestepped, letting Salazar's momentum carry him. Salazar crashed through the reinforced window of the control cabin, 5 stories above the runway. The crash was followed by a horrific, sickening silence. Dominic stood over the broken window, breathing hard. He was victorious, but the triumph was shadowed by the sheer cost of the fight. Elena rushed to him, checking the cuts and bruises on his face. He reached up, pulling her close, the shared trauma and triumph binding them irrevocably. Suddenly, the roar of the Falcon's engines intensified. The jet, still running, began to roll forward, driverless, towards the far end of the runway, straight toward the main terminal, fueled for international flight. The will! Elena shouted, pointing at the cockpit. He must have activated the self-destruct or the final timer. It's still inside, Dominic. The Falcon was moving faster now, picking up speed, a massive, accelerating missile aimed at destroying the final piece of evidence, the will that would legally bind Leo to Julian Thorne even after Salazar's death. Dominic has less than 2 minutes to stop the jet and retrieve the will. Can he save Leo's legal future after fighting the battle for his soul? Don't click off now, the finale is coming up. Hit that subscribe button, and let us know what you think will happen next. Dominic, driven by pure paternal instinct, grabbed a heavy fire extinguisher and raced down the winding staircase toward the runway. He burst onto the tarmac, running at full speed toward the accelerating jet. He didn't stop until he reached the jet's open loading door. He lunged inside, fighting the turbulence, and raced to the cockpit. The will was still on the console, secured by a strip of magnetic tape. He snatched it, jamming it into his blazer pocket just as the jet hit the end of the runway, veering sharply and crashing through the perimeter fence with a blinding flash of sparks. Dominic jumped clear just seconds before the impact. He rolled hard across the rough ground, clutching the will. The jet was totaled, the will was safe, and the danger was over. He staggered back, exhausted, toward the tower. Elena was already halfway down, holding the now fully awake and terrified Leo. Julian Thorne was innocent. Sophia was avenged. And the secret was revealed. The sirens of the city's emergency services finally arrived, cutting through the eerie silence of the airfield. Dominic stood near the wreckage of the jet, the sealed will crumpled but intact in his hand. Elena stood beside him, clutching a trembling but safe Leo. The cold shock of the confrontation was beginning to give way to a wave of overwhelming relief. Elena gently stroked Leo's hair. "It's okay, little lion. The adventure is over. Everything is going to be all right." Leo, his innocent eyes wide with the confusion of the night, looked up at Dominic. "Daddy, what happened to the big airplane?" Dominic knelt down, pulling Leo into a tight, protective hug, a hug that recognized blood didn't matter, only the fierce, unbreakable bond they shared. "The bad things are gone, son. We won. Mommy's secret kept you safe." He looked up at Elena, his eyes full of a profound gratitude that transcended words. "You saved him, Elena. You saved everything." But the story wasn't truly over until the final secret was resolved. Julian Thorne. 2 hours later, back at Dominic's estate, the atmosphere was controlled chaos. Marco was being held under heavy guard, and the hard drive containing Salazar's confession was safely cloned. Dominic, cleaned up and radiating dangerous calm, sat in his study. He picked up the encrypted satellite phone. He knew this call was the most dangerous moment of all. He was calling his greatest enemy to tell him he was innocent of murder, but guilty of fathering his son. He dialed Julian Thorne's secure line. It rang only twice before a sharp, wary voice answered. "Thorne. It's Dominic Stane. I have the truth about Sophia, and I have your son." A long, chilling silence stretched across the line. "You're lying, Stane. This is a setup." "No setup. The man who killed Sophia was Hector Salazar. He framed you both to take control of both our operations. My former head of security, Marco Cruz, was his accomplice. I have Salazar's video confession. And I have Sophia's letter. She never told you Leo was your son because she knew you would use him as a pawn. She gave him to me because she believed I would give him the life you couldn't." Dominic paused, letting the truth sink in. "Leo is your biological son, Julian. But he is my son. I have the original will you left with your lawyer. Salazar was trying to destroy it. It names you as his guardian. But I won't let you take him. Not for power. If you want him, you come for him as a father, not a cartel boss." The transformation in Julian's voice was instantaneous, shedding its venom for raw, naked shock. "Leo is my son." "He is," Dominic confirmed. "And he deserves peace. We end the war tonight, Julian. You leave my family alone, and I give you the evidence that clears your name and destroys your rival. You can walk away, live free, and perhaps, one day, watch your son grow up from a distance. Or you can start a war that kills us all, including the boy." The choice was clear. Julian, for the first time in years, chose the quiet future over the violent present. He agreed to an exchange, The video confession for a permanent, legal, and criminal truce, ensuring Leo's safety forever. The final resolution wasn't just about truth and justice. It was about the family that had been forged in the crucible of lies. Dominic stood on the balcony, watching the sunrise. Not in the west, but in the glorious, true east. Elena came up behind him, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "It's done," Dominic said, taking a sip. Julian accepted the deal. He knows he can never be a father to Leo. He chose to live with the truth rather than die for a lie. He understands that Leo is better off here. "And the will?" Elena asked softly. Dominic held up a small piece of charred, singed paper. He had burned the original will in the fireplace before the authorities arrived, making the only remaining legal document the one naming Dominic Stane as the sole protector. "I've started the official adoption proceedings," Dominic said, turning to face her. "Leo is officially becoming a Stane. His blood will be mine legally, if not biologically. And his new mother." He reached out, taking Elena's hands. The fear was gone, replaced by a quiet, fierce certainty. "You came here for redemption, Elena. To pay off your brother's debts. I've taken care of Liam, he's safe, debt-free, and moving to the coast. You don't have to stay here for money, or debt, or duty. You can walk away right now and start your life over." Elena looked at the massive, terrifying man who was now offering her freedom. She looked at the scars and the exhaustion in his eyes, and saw the man who had trusted her more than his own second-in-command. She saw the father who had risked his life for a 7-year-old boy. She smiled, tears welling up, tears not of sadness, but of pure, profound relief and joy. "Walk away. From the only place I've ever felt like I belong. From the only boy who needs me to sing the right lullaby." She moved closer, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I stayed because I love him, Dominic. And I stayed because I fell in love with the broken man who taught him how to read, not the monster who ran an empire. I'm not going anywhere." Dominic pulled her into him, the embrace fierce and necessary. It was the beginning of their life together, a life built on absolute truth, shared danger, and unyielding love for a boy who brought them together. The empire of Dominic Toretto Stane wouldn't vanish overnight, but the rules had changed. It was no longer about vengeance. It was about legacy, family, and protection. Leo walked onto the balcony, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He pointed to the sky. "Look, Daddy. The sun is rising, just like Elena said." Elena and Dominic exchanged a look, a shared, knowing glance at the true meaning of the past night's riddle. The sun always rises in the west meant the truth was always a reversal of expectation. But today, the sun was rising in the east, promising a future that was finally honest, safe, and built on an earned, genuine love. And that's the end of this gripping story of betrayal, sacrifice, and the enduring power of family. Thank you so much for watching and for being with us every step of the way. We truly hope you loved Elena and Dominic's journey from enemies to lovers, united by the little lion, Leo. If this story gave you all the feels, the shock, the relief, the joy, please smash that like button and let us know your favorite moment in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel right now. We have many more emotional, dramatic stories waiting for you. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.